Welcome to the Daily Tune-In. This is the Daily Tune-In for Monday, November 1st. I'm Vidette Mayer, and I'm excited about today's tune-in message. First of all, we had some pretty interesting energies come in over the weekend from that X-class solar flare that happened a few days ago. And I'm going to cover that a little bit on the space weather, on the Schumann resonance and the magnetosphere for our planet for today. And during today's message, I'm going to address one of your questions. I received a really interesting email over the weekend from one of you, and she posed some really great thoughts on how we navigate a lot of the darkness, the yuck going on in our world as we try to ascend into these higher states of being. So how do we manage these two worlds? And as I contemplated them, I was shown some metaphors that help us understand a little bit more about what's happening in our world, in this ascension process, in the split between the 3D and the 5D worlds. So I want to share that with you, but first let's get into this space weather so we can see what those energies look like over the weekend. And as we do, how did they affect you? How were you triggered, or were you not? Was it an easy transition into these higher frequencies that we got from our solar sun? So let's get into that and we'll take a look at it. Let's take a look at the Schumann resonance first. And as you can see, over the weekend we had some bigger spikes of that white photonic light. A lot of this was from that X-class solar flare. The interesting thing is, I would have expected it to be much more intensified coming in on the Schumann, and yet we use these tools discerningly. We know that tools can be turned down, can be manipulated, and I do believe that there are times when we aren't shown exactly what's happening because the awareness around these energies is growing collectively, and to know what is happening enhances the energy around that. So although we do see some pretty intensive spikes, it's not nearly what I would have expected coming from such a large solar flare. That said, we can take from this what we can. We know that we've gotten some heavier energies, those energies that shower us with new light, new coding, new updates to our DNA. Some of these go rather deep, definitely down into the 4D emotional vibrations of us, the emotional frequencies of us. So we got quite a workout emotionally. The interesting thing is that I saw a lot of people commenting on having a hard time sleeping, hard time, just being in these energies and having all of these densities emotionally bubble up. We are still going to have some time here where we can integrate those new understandings, those new insights. And sitting in the integration time means sitting in all of the stuff that has bubbled up over the last couple of days. Now we get to sit in it because it is quiet at the moment. Now I do know this morning I got 2 new notifications on my phone that there were minor solar flares, so we will be seeing some more energies coming in. Whether they show up or not, I don't really base a whole lot. I use the Schumann and the magnetosphere as a tool to just kind of see, and it's fascinating to me. But I do know that as we look at the solar energy, it really is, there's so many energies coming in from our sun. And also, I want you to take a look at this the magnetosphere. It is full on red pressure all around again. We're back into these. And the other thing to take notice to is, like, look how active it is on the backside of our planet. You can see the energies pushing in and pulling out, pushing in and pulling out. So all of this is going on. We have a lot of solar energy coming in from the sun this way. You can see the bow shock here, which is the
kind of the barrier that protects us from a lot of these solar energies, and yet it is, it's being bounced around quite a bit. And then we have all of this back here. So there's a lot of stuff coming in and coming out in all directions. So we can look at this on a macro level, which is the planet. We can look at it on a macro level as far as the collective, and we can also look at it on a micro level, which is for us individually. So there's a lot going on collectively and in our planet as well as in us. So you'll feel these as well. It's kind of a chaotic energy. It's kind of chaotic pressure. So it'll be interesting to see how these show up in your own life. So pay attention to how you're feeling. Pay attention to what is triggering you. Pay attention to what is just kind of festering in you, because that's the stuff that you want to sit with, and that's the stuff that's being agitated by these energies. Okay, so let's get back into the message for today.
As I mentioned in the space weather report, there's 2 more solar flares that happened this morning, and I just want to preface this by saying pretty much every space weather report's gonna be big energies are coming in, or we're expecting big energies. That is where we are planetarily. That's where we are in orbit. We are in a pretty intense solar cycle. And because of this ascension process, this is exactly what's happening. We are going to be consistently getting these energies both from the sun and from the galactic side, because we are having to come up and in frequency and resonate higher and higher with our planet. And as the planet ascends, she is ascending into the frequencies, into the 4D and 5D realms of vibrancy, of frequency. Therefore, we have to as well. And as our planet, we both have a macro perspective to this entire thing, and we have a micro perspective. The macro perspective is of what's happening to our planet, because whatever happens to our planet is going to happen to our collective, which is also a macro perspective. What's happening to everybody? And we then decipher that down and distill it down into then the micro perspective of how does that affect us? How are we growing? How are we coming up in this ascension process? What is that process? That's what the point of these daily tune-ins is, to tune into the process of ascension, and how do we bring our own frequencies up from our diet to a lot of it's around energy here, our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health. By bringing all of this into our awareness, we are then participating in the increase of our own frequency. So now I want to read this email from one of our viewers, and she brings up a really good point. And I think it's something that's very collective as we go through this process, and we're tuning in to how we, on a micro level, individually ascend into these higher frequencies, and yet we are still participating in a collective that is very much still identified with the third dimensional physical world and everything going on there. So let's read the email, and I'll come back to this now.
So here are the comments and questions from the email that I received. She says, I would love to ask your comments or feelings towards the great influx of individuals discussing the mark of the beast and the new world order. She says, I do not want to deny any current ideologies, for I can remain present with understanding in their reasonings. I also have noticed an influx of these individuals discussing these ideas that are thought to be conscious and sovereign individuals. And she also mentioned feeling very hopeless when she hears these discussions on kind of the darker side of our 3D narrative that's playing out.
It's quite a powerful question, and something very important for us all to be aware of. We have these 2 different worlds that are existing at the same time right now. And The one world is the third dimensional world. This is the one that we've really been programmed into. Our consciousness, our collective, has programmed this third dimensional matrix of a program into us from birth. This is what we've been taught. This is the way life goes. You go to school, right? You come out and you get the job. You participate in the workforce. You pay your taxes. You put your money in a bank. You have your kids. You then put the kids in the educational system, and then you teach them to do the same thing. And what we have been taught as the way of life in this program has really programmed an enslavement code within us, an enslavement frequency, without even understanding what it is. And this third dimensional programming has kept us in a cycle of paying taxes and participating in government laws that all are for the higher and better good of a select elite, so to speak, a select collective of beings that control all of it. Everything leads to the next thing. The banking leads to pharmaceutical, funds pharmaceuticals, funds government officials. The government officials are paid off by the pharmaceuticals and the banks, and it's a one big cycle that makes a grand divide between those who are running and who are creating the narrative that keep the enslavement codes going, to the great divide between them and those who keep the business running. So this 3D dimensional world is now coming into light. As we rise up into these frequencies, these deceptive narratives are starting to shake loose. There's more light coming in, and as individuals start to light up and come awake and come back online, and their critical thinking gets sparked, right? We talked about that last week. And their consciousness starts to increase. Critical thinking, discernment, their spiritual sovereignty starts to wake up. And now more and more people are noticing this 3D deceptive world. And not only that, now we're understanding how this programming has worked through our media, through social media, through our social collectives, through our family programming. And more people are understanding this. Now, those people may or may not know about this ascension process, this world, but there's this middle collective that's starting to wake up and seeing how all of this dark programming has run the world for thousands and thousands of years. This has to play out. This 3D world has to play out. But it is because of the frequency in which it was built on, it cannot withstand these higher frequencies. So it is breaking down. It is starting to shake as it starts to be seen. And it starts to then go into chaos, okay? So there's a lot of different names. There's, for this, for different things going on in this narrative. There's the mark of the beast. There's a lot of different, I don't even kind of want to talk about it really, because it shines light on it more. It gives them more power. But there's a lot of different narratives going on. Then there's a collective over here who is aware of what is happening in this ascension process, right? They've been on the healing journey. They've woken up to their spiritual way of life. And they are doing the work to stay in a higher frequency so that we can continue to ascend with the earth and be a beacon of light, so that we can keep shining light on this dark program. This is where a whole new program of living, of abundance and service to all of humanity, so that we take out the divide, the divisiveness of this 3D world, and we start to unify consciousness. We start to unify the collective into one collective that is in service to all. Those two worlds are in existence as we speak. So there's this the metaphor that was brought to me was when I was little. We used to go to this little, in Pennsylvania, we used to go to this creek, river. It's, it was a big creek or a small river, and it was called St. Peter's Village, and there's these big boulders in the river. And when I was little, some of the boulders seemed really far apart, and some you just like jump over and hope that you made it. But some of them you could put 1 foot on one boulder and 1 foot on another, and it was like super scary as a kid, because you had to get the courage and kind of the cadence back and forth before you finally picked up 1 foot out of off of this boulder and like made the move to the new one. That's where we are right now. The collective is shifting. The earth is shifting vibrationally and dimensionally. There's still this 3D dimensional expression of earth that's happening now that vibrates at a very low frequency, which is that 3D old programming. And then there's this new earth that's starting to split apart. And this 3D earth is these higher frequencies. So there are those of us who have 1 foot in the 3D, 1 foot in the 5D, in the higher, the new earth, and we're kind of doing this in between. That's why it feels disoriented sometimes. That's why we feel like we're straddling two worlds, because it hasn't been the full shift yet. The full divide hasn't happened. And this isn't the divide of division between people. It's the divide between the two dimensionalities of earth, the old earth and the new earth. We are still anchoring in the new programming, the new codes, these solar energies and these galactic energies that are all around us are literally are reprogramming us biophysically. They're reprogramming our brain waves, activating our pineal gland, bringing us up in consciousness. So there's so much going on, which is why we are between. So how do we not get sucked into this world anymore? By choosing not to participate in it. There will be those who continue to participate in the narratives, who continue to argue for why this narrative works and why you have to take something and why you don't have a choice and why you have to wear something, why you have to, pay your tax. I'm not going to get into all of it, but why you have to do all the things that we've been taught we had to do, when really we are sovereign beings. We all come forth by natural law, which makes us completely free to be sovereign beings in this world. And those who are waking up to that are choosing to then say, I'm going to this world where I, as a sovereign being operating from natural law, that means that we act and behave and think as one unit, as a unified unit, which means what's good for me is good for all. That's what sovereignty is. So when we operate like that, we don't need all of the same structures and laws and all the same divisive blueprints, the divisive templates that we've had, that we've been ingrained in. So as we straddle these two worlds, we are unpacking and deprogramming from this world and being updated and programmed to operate in this second world, this other dimension, the fifth dimensional planetary world that we're creating. We are literally creating it as we shed the densities and the manipulation and the deceptive programming that we have learned in this aspect of our world. So there's a massive upgrade that's going, which is why we have to consciously choose no longer to participate in the arguing or trying to pull people. Everybody has their own path to walk. And that's why we have to sometimes, if somebody is deeply embedded in this narrative still, we cannot no longer try to pull them out, because what's happening is they will pull us back in, and the divisiveness will happen, and we will not be able to operate over here in these higher frequencies, because this third dimensional world is still pulling us back in. This is where we have to cut the ties, so to speak, with the programming, with those who are lost in that, not lost, cut the ties with the people that are deeply still programmed in this way of life. This is where the hard work has to happen, because these people will be our friends and our family, and they will have a choice at any time to ascend into these higher states of being. But the sooner that we cut ties with those narratives and find the cadence and pull our foot up out of that old programming into the new updates, into the new programming of this fifth dimensional world, we will then be free to create lives wherever we want, however we want, in service to all. And that then creates the pull away of this dimensional earth from this one. It's so hard for the mind to really understand, but I was given one more metaphor that I want to share with you, because I think this could be an interesting thing that will help connect a dot. When you have a picture, I use Canva for a lot of my images for stuff that I do, or if you've ever used Photoshop, this will help you understand it. When we have, this is to explain the dimensionality and how the third and fifth dimensional reality are both in existence, but operating very differently. So when you have a Photoshop photo, you have the original layer, the original photo, let's say, that's on the bottom layer. So let's call that the 3D world, okay? You can lock that in place and then pull in another layer and drop that on, reduce the transparency of this top layer, but you can also manipulate and maneuver around that layer. You can add text, you can add new elements to it, and you can operate in that second layer without affecting the third layer. So it's almost as if that's what's happening as this split between the 3D and the 5D world happens. It's the 3D world's going to be there, and all of the things that are happening right now are going to play out. All of the narratives are going to play out, and we're going to be able to see that from our perspective. We're going to be able to watch that. But in not participating and being on that second layer, let's say, it's almost like another dimensional layer of this in a different frequency, which creates a new dimension. This 5D dimension is going to be sitting there on top, where we can see down, we can see everything that's going on, but in this dimension, this doesn't exist. This fifth dimensional aspect or expression of Earth has a higher frequency. So what happens here, we can play in, and we can participate in, and we can pull in beautiful elements and beautiful aspects of our life without participating in it. And there's going to be different wormholes, so to speak, of opportunities where it feels like we're still operating in this world, but we skim right on top of it, where the limitations and the restrictions of this world doesn't come up to this dimension. So we just but we just walk right through all of the restrictions and all of that. I am noticing that in my own life. As my husband and I have traveled, we've traveled tens of thousands of miles by car, all through the US, all through Mexico, and we've traveled over to Europe. During all of this stuff going on, all the restrictions, all the limitations that appear to be there, and we have swum right through or walked right through many of them. They haven't really affected us, and it's not at a risk or a detriment to others. It's simply just this world hasn't affected us in our travels. And that's how we've come to understand that we are operating in a different existence of the world, even though we can look around and we can look and see that there is this dark world and this dark narrative that is happening. This world is in existence. We are now in the place where we are between the two, and we're updating enough with these solar energies that we're now making taking our foot out of one world and putting it in another. I know this is a deep and complex kind of daily tune in, but it's really something that to pay attention to, because this is happening. Our world is splitting, and it's splitting in a beautiful way, and we have a choice every day. Do we play in this old world where it's painful and it's filled with worry and anxiety and stress, or do we operate in this world that's filled with a thriving, creative, and beautiful, expansive energy? And we are not familiar with this world because we're so ingrained in this limited and this restricted world over here that has had our programming, has had our minds, and we have been programmed to have it be okay and to still think we're free. This world is the true free world. This is the new earth that's being created by those of us who are taking our feet and our energy from this and pulling it over here. And the more of us that understand this, and the more of us that choose to operate over here, the more it helps the world to actually, or the planet to literally do this dimensional split. Crazy times, beautiful times, powerful and potent times. Pay attention to these energies, soak them up. Sit in the densities. I have all of these pigeons around me. I'm like the crazy pigeon lady. That's not a judgment, but like our this 3D world has judged the crazy pigeon lady. Well, I'm her, and I kind of love it. So I've got pigeons all around me right now. But they're attracted to this new abundant world where they are no longer, these little pigeons are no longer to be the gross park birds. They are individual expressions of God's source energy, and they each have an abundant and beautiful space in this world, just like you. That's what this fifth dimensional world's all about, and that is why we're working so hard with these densities to release them, to let them go, and all of the programming that has kept us stuck in this old world programming where only a select few build wealth and a select few find it easy to maneuver around this world with pure freedom. This world is where pure freedom is for all, and that's what we're creating. Thanks for being here today. If you have questions, please email or DM me. This is how we all bring our consciousness together, by sharing and asking and understanding different perspectives of what is happening, so we get the full grasp. I don't know if we'll ever have the full grasp, but we're still all connecting dots, and as they connect, they come into a bigger and bigger macro perspective that truly, truly helps us understand and make the leap into this higher expression of life. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow on the next Daily Tune-In. Mwah. Bye. If today's Daily Tune-In brought you value and insight, please consider giving in return for that value by leaving a love offering. All donations go to keeping this platform operating and in service to humanity during these transformational times. To go even deeper into your soul frequency, please consider these offerings. For personal insights into your most pressing questions and concerns, get an energetic insight reading delivered directly to your inbox. To take a quantum leap in your transformation, book a personal session with Vedette. There are several options available based on how deeply you would like to go into your most desired soul-led life. To find more information and to book your sessions, please visit VedetteMayer.com.